Hi there, I'm tarbucktransom, and have you ever noticed that all of the woodworking tutorials that are around the internet all rely on the idea that you have thousands of dollars of woodworking equipment? Like, here's a really quick 10-minute project that you can put together at home, provided you have a $500 table saw. Not how I operate. I'm not going to spend tons and tons of money on something like that I'm just starting to get into. So here we are with Thrifty Woodworking. Before I get into discussions of any of the specific tools that I recommend or projects that you can do with those tools, switching hands, because this is my fourth take, I wanted to talk about the general guiding principles behind the way that I do things. First, the tool had either better be multi-purpose, like a combination square, or be extremely good at the one thing that it does, like a card scraper or a bevel gauge. Next, I try to have the minimum necessary to accomplish the tasks that I want to accomplish. I have, for example, one saw, because that saw was specially chosen to serve all of my purposes. That does mean that you have to know what that minimum actually is. You shouldn't be trying to accomplish things with fewer tools than you actually need. Like, if you need to hammer stuff, have a hammer. Even if that hammer is on the back of an axe. This is my carpenter's axe. Next, no ongoing costs. I don't like sandpaper, because you have to keep buying it forever. That's why I use a card scraper instead, because you only have to buy it the one time, and then you can tune it up every time it starts to wear out on you. And one card scraper is a legacy hand-me-down, provided you maintain it well. So I try to reduce all of the ongoing costs that I possibly can. Some of that is going to be a little unavoidable. It's not like your average person has an infinite supply of wood, for example. So if you're going to be doing woodworking, you have to keep buying wood. Some recurring costs are harder to avoid, like nails, unless you use some clever design work, in which case you can hold together things with joinery. And we'll talk more about that in another video. My primary sharpening tool is a Speedy Sharp, and for everything else I use a set of diamond plates, because it's a one-time purchase. Speaking of sharpening tools, you're going to want to be able to improve your tools. My carpenter's axe right here, which is multi-purpose as a hammer and an axe, did not function very well when I bought it. And that's why it was $5. A lot of those cheaper tools are cheap because they're not really ready to use directly out of the box. They are barely functional, but for a little bit of labor, you can save yourself an awful lot of money. I'm looking at my chisel set over here. If I had bought that in the condition that it's currently in, it would have been $400 for the whole set. Next, know when to use power tools and when to use hand tools. Hand tools are going to be the thing that I reach for most of the time because they're cheaper and they don't break as easily, and you can fix them. They don't run out of batteries, unless, you need to eat, in which case, feed yourself. What are you doing? I think that a brace and bit is a lot more reliable than an electric hand drill. There just happens to be certain things that an electric hand drill is better for, so I have one. Mostly, the things that an electric hand drill is better for is for the smaller bits, for the finer holes. For all of my hatred of sanding, I do still have a sander over there because it makes it much easier when you're making knives. That's a bit of a different subject. A huge one is know when to buy new and know when to buy used. A lot of tools, especially if you're already willing to tune them up, and presumably you are dirt cheap when they're used. Files can cost you $1 instead of $7 a piece. A lot of hand tools especially are things that you can buy used in reasonably good condition and then restore to perfect working order with very little effort on your part. A lot of that is going to depend on where it is that you live. I happen to live around a lot of flea markets and antique stores and those sorts of things, and those old hand tools, they last forever. Mostly because of survivorship bias. That is, all of the things that they made in the past that didn't last forever are already gone. Chances are, if it's made it this far, that it's going to make it even further. Developing a new skill beats buying a new tool. in a majority of cases. I could, if I really wanted to, get a set of dado blades for a power saw, but they only do one thing. They happen to do it pretty well, but they don't do it better than a chisel in a lot of cases, because it's harder to do dovetails with a set of dado blades. If you can teach yourself something that performs the same job as a purpose-built tool, then you have saved yourself the cost of an entire tool, and you have given yourself a tool that no one can take away from you. On that note, learn a skill that will work in 100% of cases. This is why I love chisels so much, because for a lot of the things that they're good for, they are best for. A chisel will always work. You should also know multiple ways of accomplishing the same thing, because sometimes the way that will work in 100% of cases will do it slower or for more effort in a particular situation, and there might be a better way of doing that. Lastly, and this is a more general principle in woodworking, get used to the idea that you're going to make a lot of the things that you need in order to accomplish certain tasks. That's actually going to be one of the first videos after we stop doing all this preliminary stuff. And speaking of stopping doing this preliminary stuff, bye!